Hello, I'm Azrael Knox, and today I'll be talking about my top 10 Sega Master System games. This list consists of my favourite games of the ones that I currently own. That being said, I will not be talking about any that I do not own. I will also not be talking about the overly popular games because I don't want to copy everyone else and go with things like Sonic or Alex Kidd or anything like that. So let's get down to number 10. For number 10, I've decided to go with Shadow of the Beast. Just give you a good look at the cover there. On the back it says, "From behind the edge of darkness, the warrior cries revenge. Shadow of the Beast is unleashed on the Sega Master System. In a superlative arcade adventure, relentless combat as the Beast battles over 100 different alien forms in 8 hostile regions of a supernatural world. It feels so real, you can almost taste knuckle." What the hell? Anyway, let's have a look at the game footage. Shadow of the Beast came out on pretty much every console at the time, and most of these releases tried to emulate the Amiga with small differences. As far as I'm aware, the Master System port is the one with the most changes to the game, but they are good changes. I'd imagine that due to the limitations of the system, the developers decided that instead of taking the cut and paste method, that they would flesh out the game in various methods which work very well and add to the game's overall strength. They added more dialogue and depth to the game in naming some of the various creatures and bosses and explaining more of what's actually happening. Whereas most of the other ports are just bam, weird shit, deal with it. On top of that, they added an inventory and some roguelike elements. Don't know what this purple potion does? Drink it, you're dead now, too bad. I will be discussing this more in depth some other time, but if you haven't played Shadow of the Beast for the Master System, I do suggest giving it a chance. The only reason this game isn't higher on the list is because the music was butchered by the hardware, but they did give it a good shot and I can't blame them for trying. Overall, a great but very frustrating game. I will leave you with a little more gameplay footage and a sample of the music. Before we get into number 9, I do need to mention that there will be flashing colours, flashing lights, so if you have epilepsy, skip ahead to number 8. For number 9, I decided to go with Laser Ghost. Just have a look at the cover here. It's one of the more detailed covers. Well, when I say detailed, it's not just a piece of clip art. The back of the cover reads, "Poor Catherine is scared stiff. Ghosts and goblins have stolen her soul and imprisoned her. Help me, somebody please help me." So let's have a look at the gameplay. Laser Ghost is an arcade shooter. Your role is to protect Catherine, whom has been taken to the city of ghosts and goblins that only appears every 13 years and has to take someone's soul in order to continue to exist. While the game has the same title as the arcade game, the two have nothing to do with one another at all, so this is not a port. You have two options for controlling the game, in that you can either use the light phaser or the D-pad. Ideally, you'd be using the light phaser as the main shooter and using the D-pad for the special shot, but both work rather well despite some issues with the D-pad. While the D-pad works great, and it's fantastic that they added the option to use the crosshair with it, the crosshair does tend to rubber band a little, especially while you're trying to shoot a row of enemies on one side of the screen and then on the other side something else comes up, because it'll always try to center itself when you're not using the directional buttons. Despite some of its shortcomings, it made this list for its great animation, fast gameplay, and the ability to play it without the use of a light phaser. I will leave you with some more gameplay footage and some of the music before we get on to number 8. For number 8, I decided to go with Patton Putter. Here we are. Patton Putter is basically what happens when you combine miniature golf with pinball. Yeah, I'm not much of a sports person, but I do like this game. It's been one of my faves since I was a kid. Anyway, let's have a look at the back. The waves crash against the shore as you tee up. Ahead in the distance, pinball bumpers. An outrageous combination of miniature golf and pinball. It's Patton Putter. Let's have a look at the game. Patton Putter is one of the strangest sports games in the Master System library, but it is also one of the most enjoyable because it doesn't take itself too seriously. The pinball pumpers sound like someone's farting, and the course layouts are very well designed, making you plan each stroke carefully. There isn't a whole lot more to say about the game, so I'll leave you with some footage and music, and you can come to your own conclusions. If you suffer from epilepsy or any neurological mental condition that is affected by flashing lights or flashing colours, whether it be PTSD or anything like that, skip ahead to number 6. For number 7, I decided to go with Ghost House. Yeah, not a whole lot to see on the cover there, just 4 bats. Now, Ghost House, you're basically going through a vampire's house and stealing shit. On the back it reads, try to find the hidden treasure in this spooky romp through Count Dracula's haunted house. Let's have a look at the gameplay and I'll talk a little bit more about it. Ghost House is essentially a fun little time waster of an arcade style game. In the game you play as a kid named Mickey, and despite the fact that he's a kid, he's quite tough because he can be hit by arrows, flying swords and get breathed on by fire. And he'll just keep going till he's dead or he's stolen all of the jewels. Why is he in the house? To steal the jewels that belong to 5 vampires. Why does he want them? The jewels owned by vampires. What's the bloody point? Who cares? Mickey is tough, but he's not entirely clever, as he will willingly walk into enemies, into fire pits in the basement, and because he's decided to steal jewels from vampires for no discernible reason. If you do decide to give this game a go, do keep in mind that if you jump into the lights on the ceiling, that it will freeze enemies on the screen for a few seconds, and jumping on the swords will equip them, as this information is strangely missing from the manual. I'll leave you with some more gameplay footage and music before getting on to number 6. Again, the next game will have flashing lights and colours. I think the rest of them will too, so if you do suffer from anything that's affected by flashing lights, flashing colours, anything like that, probably best to stop watching this video and the next one. So, yeah. For number 6, I decided to go with Ghostbusters. Yeah. Not much to see on the cover again, but this is typical of the early Master System games. You know what Ghostbusters is. If you don't, Google is your friend. Okay, so let's have a look at the back of the box. There's actually quite a bit here, so bear with me. Starting your own Ghostbusters business is tough. It takes a lot of money, a lot of equipment, and lots of hard work. But someone's got to do it. You get to drive some of the world's hottest cars, play with the latest high-tech equipment like super ion beams, laser confinement systems, and image intensifiers. The image intensifiers are rubbish. Closer than anyone's been to the ominous Marshmallow Man. That doesn't sound too great. Face to face with the goat leader of the universe, Gorza. I think it's supposed to be Goza. So if you're tired of your regular old job, why not sign on as a Ghostbuster and find out what a real job is? Let's have a look at the game. Ghostbusters for the Master System is essentially the same as every other Ghostbusters game for the 8-bit systems and lower at the time, but it's much more polished. If you haven't played any of these games of the era, I will break them down for you as simplistically as possible before I talk about the differences. In Ghostbusters, you play as someone who has started their own Ghostbusters franchise, and as you may have guessed, your goal is to rid the city of ghosts. You start off with a preset amount of money that you'll use to invest in your equipment, and in this port, your car, which will greatly affect the gameplay because you will have to drive between all the city blocks to the haunted buildings, back to the HQ, and then to the store to upgrade your equipment. This port is different from the others in that it has kind of a guerrilla save feature in that if you can't get into the Zool building, you can try again with the money that you had left over from the last game. With the use of a password in doing this, if you're unable to beat the game, you'll be able to get the fastest car, the best equipment early on. The graphics and sound have been polished immensely to work to the best of the system's capability, and this was a wise move. They've also added Vince Clortho and Zool running around the city, and if you run into them, you will lose quite a lot of money. Furthermore, the Ghost Spade is no longer useless. I haven't played any of the other ones except for the Atari 2600 port. The only use for it in that is that I'm aware of is to draw ghosts to a trap because they tend to hide in the buildings. In the Master System port, the Ghost Spade is used to prevent the Marshmallow Man from destroying city blocks by pressing 2. When the loose ghosts turn green, I won't go into too much detail in this video because it's getting a little long, and I want to revisit this game in the future. So I will leave you with some more gameplay footage and some of the music. This video is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, so I'm going to split it up. So this is part 1. If you enjoyed this video or you are curious as to what my top 5 are, come along to number 2. I don't know when that's going to be done.